Oh, well, thank you very much. Oh, blessings to you all, and massive respect to all of your gods, and massive respect and blessings to your families, and something so special that's kind of brought us together is really about the future that we want here in the Waikato, and how do we work collectively and to obtain that. So thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Val, for organising this. And yeah, let's crank it. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Rick. I think I'm next, folks. So kia ora koutou. My name is Harvey Brooks. I'm the Executive Director of the Waikato Wellbeing Project, and many of you will be familiar with the project, but I just thought for those who aren't, I'll just quickly give a little run through on what the project is and what it does, and that'll give a little bit of context to the amazing work that everyone on this call is doing today. So I'm just going to share my screen, and if I can just get a thumbs up if you're looking at an image that says Waikato Wellbeing Project. Awesome. I'll just quickly take you through this. And this is actually a presentation that Amy, who's on the line today, helped me with, which we took to Wellington last week and presented to a whole lot of government agencies around our journey and as our story as the Waikato Wellbeing Project. So I'll go fairly quickly and just take 5 minutes. Some of it will be familiar to you. You know, we're here today because the Waikato Wellbeing Project is only the people who are involved with it from the grassroots up. And so the success that we have is only the success of amazing people like you all here today. What is it? Well, we had a description which you can read there about being originally a regional initiative achieving a more environmentally sustainable, prosperous and inclusive Waikato by 2030. We've sort of been reflecting on this and realizing that's not something that anyone can really disagree with, but it's also very hard to remember, and it doesn't really speak to the heart. And so more recently, our advisory board, our Taki, have come up with a new vision and a mission, and this is something I absolutely love. You can see our vision there on the right hand side. Our mokopuna are thriving, and I don't know about you, but when I think about how do I hope the world will be as a result of me being on it, it's that my grandchildren actually have a good life and hopefully a better life than I've had too. So hopefully that's something that can stick. Our mission is to really hear people and support a different future for them through positive impact. And that's exactly what today is about, listening and hearing. What do we do? This is our main business plan on a page. We really want to facilitate insight and breakthrough to contribute to that vision and mission. So we've got 4 priorities along the blue bar there. This one is around tautoko, leading, facilitating and funding projects. So the work that we're doing with Rick and Val in the circular economy is an example of that. Can I just ask everyone to maybe put your microphones on mute if you haven't already? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. The second one is pūrākau, which is about sharing stories and data so that we all have a better package of information that we can go out and actually do well-being ourselves. The third one is haukainga and celebrating local successes. So one of our team, an amazing guy from Raglan called Joe Wilson, is just starting a project we're calling Lots of Little Fires. And it's the idea that if you flew over the Waikato at dusk in a hot air balloon and you look down and you can see these little campfires everywhere. And every one of those campfires are people and family and hapu and whānau and communities telling stories of breakthrough and of success from the tiniest scale to the really big. And so often those stories don't get shared enough. And everyone on this call knows this to be a fact. We don't need to invent the solutions to our wellbeing challenges. They're out there right now. What we need to do is share and amplify and turn that from the unusual into the everyday. And then the fourth one is waha and advocating for positive change based on what we have learned and what our amazing communities are doing in the Waikato. Our strategic lens is there. We won't do anything or support anything unless it improves equity outcomes, facilitates meaningful engagement, protects te taiao, and upholds te tiriti. Those are our four lenses. And so that's basically who we are as a project. One of our big projects is what we're calling the rangatahi opportunity. In the interest of time, I won't dwell on this, but it's basically looking, using our approach to say, how might we support rangatahi on the Waikato to have the best possible future they can have that is mana enhancing and sets them on a positive pathway. So we've collected lots of data. We've listened to a whole lot of youth who are not necessarily able to have their voices heard at the moment. And then we're moving forward over the next month or so to some innovative prototypes that we hope will actually help move things forward, even if just a little wee bit. Our next big challenge, in addition to the circular economy challenge, is what we're calling the Waikato Kai challenge. And I think the paradox that many of us feel uncomfortable about, this is the food bowl of Aotearoa, and people are hungry. It's just not right. So how can we get more insight into why that is? And how can we support those who are doing incredible maki to change that and help scale those up and address that challenge? This is just repeating a little bit. As I said, we really want to share better data and insights with people. So we're developing some interesting ideas in that space and telling stories through the many little fires. And advocating. So being in Wellington last week was about telling our story to Wellington and giving them hopefully some more first-hand experience on these challenges. We want to be part of Team Waikato. We don't do policy, we don't do strategy, but we really respect and honour those who do. So we work in partnership with people like the Waikato Plan so that all these things come together. So Rick, that's us. I hope that gives everyone a little bit of a taster. And I just so taitoko the work that you and everybody on this call is doing, and so looking forward to hearing more. Kia ora, everyone.
Kia ora, Harvey.
Right, so I think that's me next. Kia ora koutou. I'm Valerie Bianchi from Waikato Regional Council. My role is Waste Prevention Advisor. Just bear with me while I share my screen. We might just ask everyone to mute if possible, because I can hear something from somebody. So I'm going to introduce Sustainable Development Goal 12. So that's about responsible consumption and production. So normally when we talk about responsible consumption and production, the first thing we talk about is waste. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of context for waste in our region. So from a recent Waikato and Bay of Plenty regional waste stocktake, we know that we are producing around 300,000 tons of waste per year. And just to put that in context, we also have a lot of landfills in our region. So we're importing about the same amount into our region. So normally when we talk about this, people get a little bit defensive and they say, well, we need to stop importing waste from our region. But the reality is that we're all producing waste. We're all in the same situation. So we're better off actually working with our neighbors, which is why we do a lot of cross-boundary work, mostly with Bay of Plenty, but Auckland has some really great initiatives happening, and their objective is to be zero waste by 2050. So we all are working, we all recognize that this is a problem, and we all are trying to find some kind of solution. So the goal of Sustainable Development Goal 12 is about sustainable consumption and production. The community goal that was put in place was to increase the number of households, schools, businesses, and farms to reduce their waste by 50%. We know that this is possible because through our waste stocktake, we can see that out of general waste, which is basically everything except for residential curbside. There are huge gains to be made in terms of organics. Timber is a really large category as well. So we know that in construction and demolition, there's gains to be made there. And in terms of curbside curbside waste going to class 1 landfill, organics make up another large portion of that. And so we'll talk about some organics diversion initiatives in the second half of the talk. So why do we actually even have divertible material going to landfill? At the moment, we're in a linear economy. So we take a resource, we make something, we use it for a little while, and then we chuck it out. Recycling offers us some gains to be made. And obviously recycling is a huge category, and depending on the material, the recycling can be more or less effective. But the idea is that we can do a bit better, which is why circular economy has become a really popular idea. So the idea with circular economy is we can take something, make something, and keep it in use as long as possible. The common principles of circular economy are actually to design waste out of the system altogether, keep the products and materials that we have extracted in use as long as possible, regenerate natural systems, and we are promoting a circular economy that increases social and cultural equity as well. The other framework that we use to think about solutions is the waste hierarchy. So the waste hierarchy has a lot of different interpretations. We find that this interpretation from Parakore gives us a really good Aotearoa New Zealand context. So the words are quite small, but in the top of the waste hierarchy, we're taking actions that respect Papatūānuku, and at the bottom of the waste hierarchy, we're trashing Papatūānuku. So it all relates together with circular economy as well. We want to design waste out of the system altogether, so we don't end up with anything that we have to deal with at landfill. So while we're focusing on waste today and waste perspective in terms of Sustainable Development Goal 12, there are huge implications across all the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think that what you'll hear from people today is that they're not just working to design waste out or prevent waste, but there's also a lot of other implications. So there's a lot of tie-in with even the Waikato Kai Challenge. There's tie-in with life below water, if we're being really efficient and not creating toxic products. And then you'll see a lot of chances for us to support people with meaningful employment, for example. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Te Rua.
Cool, kia ora tātou. Thank you for that. I'll just get straight into it. Share screen. Screen 2. Ka pai. We can all see the Parakore logo. Can you see that on your screens? Right, ka pai. Cool, kia ora tātou. My name is Rua Wallace, and I'm here today on behalf of Jackie and on behalf of our organisation Parakore. In this presentation, I'll give a kōrero of some of the history or a bit of a background on who Parakore is, as well as making the connection between Parakore, te ao Māori, and the responsible consumption. And trying to link that into today's kaupapa. And to start us off, I will begin by sharing a video that'll set the context for today's kōrero and providing you with a te ao Māori worldview and around our creation stories, around our atua Māori, that will slowly link into food sovereignty, into consumption, into closed circle loops. Can we all see the YouTube channel? I don't know if the sound will work, so let me know if you can or cannot hear anything.
We can't hear the sound, Rua.
Pardon?
We can't hear the sound.
Ah, okay. How does everyone feel about just reading the subtitles for now? Okay, ka pai. We'll try that again. I'll see if I can figure it out on the back. Ka pai. So for anything to take away from this is definitely this last line. We are all descendants of the natural world, of the taiao. At the end of my kōrero, I will pop the link into the chat for anyone who may want to go back at a later time and watch that. Let's go back to the slide. Ka pai. So from that video, we understand the creation story, we understand our atua Māori, and the beginning, I guess, of Te Ao Māori for us. And really, it wasn't until recent times that we really did live with those principles of zero waste and harvesting. And I think this happened throughout the country and in recent generations as well, where we lived off the land and lived off the water. And here we see our kuia harvesting the kumara. And so, as said earlier, it wasn't that long ago that these practices were happening. I think a lot of us may be able to have conversations with our elders and understand and know that they lived in accordance with the taiao, with the moon phases, and that the systems that we live under today are fairly new and have happened in such a short and intense time frame. So the challenges that came, or what saw that shift from living in accordance with the taiao to where we are today for us in Aotearoa, definitely stemmed from colonisation, from the confiscation of our land, and the land wars being some of the key milestones and the key times that shifted the way as a country we operated and we functioned and we lived and what governed the systems here in Aotearoa. From this, we created new linear systems, extraction, production, disruption, consumption and disposal. We learnt to take, make and throw away. These systems are harmful, as we all know, all harmful, and not only to ourselves, but to our tamariki and to the taiao. And that's where Parakore has come in, with the goal of retracing our steps, not creating anything new, but really going back into the days and bringing forward how our tupuna lived, their systems that they had in place, and trying to get us back into a closed loop circular system where nothing was wasted and nothing was thrown out. And how we try to do that today is getting through to our marae, into our kohanga, into our kura, into organisations, workplaces and events, and providing support in that place. And that looks like a range of different workshops that we provide, with the main purpose of educating and providing for a Māori worldview, for a world without waste. And the main goal and how we like to achieve this, and our method of education, is through connection to identity. When our people can see where their daily items come from, and there's more of a responsibility to do something about it and to make a change, when you can see, okay, this toilet paper, this paper, it's not just paper, although I can only see the form that it is in now. If I trace back its whakapapa, its genealogy, it takes me back to trees. In the creation story, we saw it takes me back to Tāne Mahuta, one of my gods. The same with steel, takes me back to a natural resource of Papatuanuku. Same with glass, same with oil, and same with aluminium. So this method that we use to break things down, to show its whakapapa, is just one way of trying to show that although you may see a cell phone, you may see just a book, its original source comes from, really, it comes from you. It comes from your whenua, comes from your waterways, comes from your identity. So take care of it, and do what we can to look after the tile. With the ultimate goal of creating a closed loop circle, a system that returns resources naturally back to the whenua, resources that we can use again and again. This closed loop reduces both landfill and recycling in our everyday life. It's good for us and it's good for Papatuanuku. And it was spoken about earlier, and no doubt this will be touched on throughout today's kōrero, and it was also something that we're all very familiar with. Ka pai, ngā mihi tātou.
Kia ora te rua. So Gary, I think you can go ahead and share.
Bit of hard acts to follow. Hey. So yeah, we love parakore to do, so that's pretty cool. And those new videos are wicked, so I think they're really useful for a lot of us to use. So my little segment is just around community recycling centres and zero, or we started to call them zero waste hubs now. Again, we love acronyms in our world, so we'll come up with some new ones too. So can everyone see that all right? Screen's cool, yeah. So Kura Gary Kelk, Toku Whenua. About 20 years working in the community enterprise sector, running around zero waste, which is parakore, so and healthy homes initiatives as well. Those are a lot of the groups that I've worked with and still currently working with. And just looking through an Akina report this morning, so again, and that's quite cool about those SDGs like this. Yeah, our community recycling centres cover all those SDGs. And community recycling centres, no one really knows what they are. So what are they? I talked about them being a transition asset. So I think they're a key infrastructure in a circular economy. And again, I think the parakore is a lot better picture than what I've got here of how we look at stuff. But, you know, our focus really is all about behaviour change, number one. and then we focus on what we can do. So we focus at the top end around reducing and repairing and reusing, and then we get into recovery, you know, and I've put recycling with organics materials, but organics goes a bit higher than that. So, you know, and then lastly, if we have to dispose of stuff, we want to make sure it gets disposed of correctly, and that's regardless whether it's e-waste or refuse to landfill. And they're not, just see if I can move this down here maybe. Yeah, so CRCs, when I talk to councils and other communities about them, the infrastructure is not built. So we talk about CRCs, there's pilots and there's ones that have been built, but generally it's a structure that doesn't exist. And also I talk about, we need to look at them as a community perspective, just like a library, a pool, a road. They're valuable assets. They don't always have a return on investment in terms of money, but they're a key part of our infrastructure for communities. So, you know, and here's, so this is what I'm involved with at the moment, which Rick and I helped set up north at Waiuku. And this is just the layout of council spent about $2 million upgrading this old transfer station into a community recycling centre. Most of the money got spent on roading and under infrastructure, you know, which is really important, but they're expensive to set up. So, and the new one they put in over here was on the right was a reuse shop. So that's about a 500 square metre retail space, and that outdoor yard, which is really important. This is the old works depot, which we use as office space and a tool library. It's got a workshop maker space, and it's got education spaces in there. You know, and over on the left here, it's got where we handle the refuse and the recycling drop off and try and take as much material out at that end, which comes this way. So we people about 70% of all material through that site is recovered or reused. And you know, and that's not a great picture, but that's a picture of what our shop looks like now. But it's an amazing space compared to what we did have when we started, and it makes a real difference. Why are community recycling centres different? They're different for a number of reasons. The main one is the ownership structure. They're not private businesses owned by the community. They do a lot of empowerment to help the community actually solve and have a go at making their own solutions to local and global problems. And they're really after impact. So what does impact look like for us? Jobs is a key one locally. Probably 60% plus of our expenses are wages. And it's mainly new jobs we're creating. We concentrate on local suppliers providing it. When there's a lot of innovation goes on in these spaces as well. Environmental outcomes, again, it is about reducing the amount of material that goes to landfill. And that's like Raglan, we've seen increased behaviour, but not just from the first generation, now it's second generations that are coming through, which we're seeing them changing the businesses they're working in and the businesses they're creating. And this just a plug for Envision. I'm doing a bit of work with Envision. We've got a project with Waikato Regional Council. We were supporting as much as we can the community recycling centres and groups around the Waikato region that covers the Waikato Regional Council boundaries. And it's mainly, it's not a big project, but it's been quite valuable. And so these are some of the groups that currently exist that we've worked with or working with in the Waikato Regional Council boundaries. There's a real strong focus up around Coromandel, Hauraki, just because they've got a cool little network going now. And Manu is over there doing great work with the Seagull Centre Trust. And just some pictures of some of the sites, really, what do they look like? And again, we'll look at these sites and go that they sort of look a bit messy, they look a bit clean. What you see with these sites is they get built on, they get added to as we find more money to build more infrastructure. If we design them from scratch, they'd look completely different. But Seagull Centre, like, they're amazing compared to when they started. So, and that one's at the Coromandel transfer station. So that's a real startup. It's been a bit of a complicated story, that one. Again, I see South Waikato District Council on board here. So this is one of my personal favourites, which I love working with Russell and his crew down at South Waikato Achievement Centre Trust in Tokoroa. So they've been
Gary?
Kia ora. Shall I have a go at sharing my screen? I think I might be able to do it.
Liz, so I'm going to speak now and then
Oh,
Phil,
sorry,
and
Val.
that's okay. No, that's all good. You're so eager. It's good. Right, so can everyone see my screen? Sorry. Yeah, okay, cool. Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about organics. So why would we talk about organics? If you recall from the introduction, it presents a huge opportunity for us. So globally, about a third of all food that is produced is lost or wasted. So this is a problem that I think all around the world people are trying to tackle. Organics going to landfill presents an opportunity for us to reduce climate emissions. And then, as you'll recall from my previous slides, just with finding more effective ways to prevent and divert organics, we can meet our Waikato Wellbeing goal of a 50% reduction of waste going to, being generated first of all, and then especially going to landfill. So while we are going to talk about recovery today, I want to acknowledge the great work that's being done in our region on the prevention side. So many of you might be aware about Kaivolution. So they take usable food and make it available for people who might be struggling with food security. Love Food, Hate Waste is a national campaign. It's actually all around the world, but it's a national campaign here, and that helps people figure out how to prevent food waste within their home. And then some of you may have heard of Foodprint, which is an app that works with the restaurant industry to sell food that they weren't able to sell during their normal business hours at a discounted rate. So being a local government employee, there's quite a, we are responding to the drivers for local government to address the recovery of organics. So there's a number of levers that are being pulled and indications from central government that we should be looking at offering curbside collections of one form or another. And there's a lot of focus and emphasis on this from both territory authorities and, like I said, from things like central government, like the emissions reduction plan. So as a regional council, we don't have the same legislative mandate as territory authorities, so that's city and district councils do. So city and district councils are responsible for curbside. The role that regional council plays is bringing people together, finding areas that we can be really efficient in our research and finding ways to support all of our partners in our region. So we are doing a 2-year project called the Circularizing Organics Project. That focuses on 3 areas: collections and processing for organics, eliminating contaminants, and understanding the markets for what the resulting product might be.
Kia ora, Barry. Did you want to be moving through your slideshow? We're just still on your first slide.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry about that. Oh, for some reason it's working on one screen of mine and not the other. Has it advanced now?
Yeah, we're on to slide 2. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'll just whiz through those so you get the point. Yeah. Sorry, apologies for that. So for the eliminating contaminants focus area of our project, we are looking at both physical contamination. So that's things like plastic. So for example, fruit stickers or horticultural clips. So we're looking at both residential and industrial sources. I'm just making sure my screen's still working. Is that right?
Now we've just got the little error message or slideshow, resume slideshow.
Oh boy.
I think yeah, that's it.
Is it working now?
Ka pai.
How about now?
Yeah, we're on slide 6.
Fantastic. Right, so we're looking at contamination. So that's both physical contamination and chemical contamination as well. So for example, PFAS is a coating in cardboard that makes the cardboard water resistant, but when it bioaccumulates or accumulates in the body, it can not be very good. And herbicides as well. So we're looking at both food scraps as well as things like green waste. We are also considering contamination from a te ao Māori perspective. So for example, hair might contaminate compost that's going to be used for food production. The other part of our project is looking at markets. So it's all well and good to collect something, to make something out of it, but if you don't have somewhere for it to go, it's going to end up being a problem. So we're looking at both industrial markets and then the procurement opportunities for local government itself. So we might actually find that we have quite a large demand within local government, just in terms of local government assets and things like restoration planting. And finally, we are looking at developing a decision-making matrix for local government and community and iwi Māori business to help understand what the different implications for both collections and processing might be. So we're looking at things like operational and capital expenditure on setting systems up, what the carbon emissions from different processing options might be, what the opportunity for community is. So linking back to what Gary was talking about in terms of community resource recovery centers. Like I said, we're looking at what the opportunity for iwi Māori business might be and what existing facilities might already exist that we can take advantage of. So I just want to acknowledge the partnerships that we have for part of this project. So this is a part funded project by Waikato Wellbeing and the Ministry for Environment's Waste Minimization Fund. And just give a thank you to our partners for this project, Extreme Zero Waste and Parakore. So I think now, Phil from Mainoki, you're up. You're on mute, Phil. Still on mute, Phil. No.
Yep. Okay, cool.
There we go.
I'm not sure if you heard that, but I was just saying how excited I am to be here, and really the connection between what everybody's talked about so far is just so perfect for where Mainoki's at. So I'm going to attempt, and this will be a world record, I think, to explain what we do in under 10 minutes, which is, as I say, going to be pretty impressive. So feel free to come to me with any questions after or later, because we're going to go through a lot. I'll just start off with where we started from. So we've been operating for 15 plus years now. We've processed over 1 million tonnes of organic waste, all been diverted from landfill. So this is not a new idea. This is not a new technology. I mean, earthworms have been around for, 400 and something billion years or whatever the figure may be. And we're just now looking at really that strong growth curve. So at the moment, we have about 27 of our human team, and we have about 3 billion of our Nokia, of our earthworms. We've got 4 operational sites, and we're just currently working with, particularly with MFE, to expand that significantly very rapidly because of obviously the curbside and organics diversions that's wanting to be done, but also preparing our soils for climate change. And I think that's a really good one. So when you link it into, you know, the vision for the Waikato Wellness Program about our mokopuna thriving, it's exactly that. If we don't look after our soils, if we don't get them ready for the major climate change and the changes that we're already seeing now, we're not going to be able to grow anything. It's as simple as that. So, you know, a big ethos around Mainoki is actually the soils. It's not so much the waste, but we prefer to call it resources, that helps us to create beautiful vermicast that can enhance a lot of soils. Where we're heading to is our ultimate aim is to have 18 worm farms around New Zealand and ultimately overseas as well, but we want to focus on our home base first. Just a little quick about our process, and when you talk about circular economy, we're true soil to soil. So, you know, taking the organic waste, utilising only natural technologies, i.e. the little capsules that are about that long, although there was one in the paper that was that big, that would be really useful on our farm, and returning it back to the source where it should be. It should not be in landfills, it should not be anywhere else. The type of sort of organic waste, we take a lot of bulk stuff, as well as curbside type scenarios. So in this picture, we've got oxidation ponds. So we're just about to start on the Thames oxidation pond. That's about 10,000 tonnes of biosolids that would otherwise have gone to landfill. And it's like beautiful peanut butter for our gnocchi. They love it. The picture to the right was our first ever load of Hamilton biosolids. So for those of you in the mighty Hamilton, every time you flush that little toilet on your throne, you're actually feeding our worms. So all the biosolids, we get 2 30-tonne truck and trailer units a day coming from Hamilton to our Totoroa site, which is really exciting. And a lot of DAF from the dairy industry. If you're vegan or vegetarian, look the other way. A lot of meat products, paunch, and we've just finished or finalised our patent on sheep pelts. So we're the first in the world to successfully vermicompost sheep pelts, which is a massive problem for New Zealand. And I was down in Dunedin yesterday, and they're saying, you know, the companies down there are just burning them because they can't get rid of them and paying the fine, which is just crazy stuff. A lot of dairy industry type waste, as well as I mentioned, a lot of food waste. So, you know, for example, we collect from a number of businesses, and I'm really excited to give you a little bit of a teaser what's coming up in the next week or so. We're just about to announce a large pilot trial in the Waikato region with a major waste collection company, because we're not collectors. We're good at worm farming. And for us to be able to actually meet the demand of an inquiry and meet the demand of you know, that 300,000 tonnes or whatever it is of organic waste that's out there, you know, we need to partner with the right people to be able to collect it and bring it to us in an efficient manner. So, and it also came from our own carbon footprinting, realising that we're too inefficient. So it's better to do a collection company. So that will be for businesses in the Waikato region, collecting organic waste and bringing it to one of our worm farms. You'll see this truck running around shortly. We're just getting it sign written now. This is our Hamilton truck, so where the biosolids are going back and forth twice a day. You'll see a big wriggly worm shortly. We've got a new truck coming, a bit more efficient, which is fantastic. Quick little video. I'm not sure if you can hear the noise or...
Now that we have the ingredients, it is off to the kitchen. The bins are checked and then taken out to one of our farms located throughout the country.
This is our Taupo site.
It then gets dropped onto a mixing pad like this, where it meets other delicious ingredients and put into a giant kitchen whiz, as our gnocchi would say. After 20 minutes of mixing, the meal is ready to be laid out into beautiful rows on our farm. Don't worry about where the worms will come from. They will sniff out their next meal and travel many kilometres if it tickles their taste buds.
So that's a little insight into, I guess, the curbside. So we did a big curbside trial last year. And yeah, you can see from those little trucks, it's obviously an inefficient way of doing it, but we needed to get ourselves ready for the larger curbside. So dealing with cardboard and paper and food waste from a range of different sources, including Tauranga Hospital, Zesbury's head office. They've diverted 87% of all their waste is now going to our worm farm, which is really, really cool. This is the Taupo site, so it gives you an idea. You know, again, our ethos is around making sure that we're leaving any soil in a better condition, and the only thing we leave behind is a concrete pad, which can be reused from council, farmers, whatever it might be. So, you know, no big expensive buildings, etc. It's all around utilising nature that we've always had. Worms digesting and utilising a lot of the organics. It's about, you know, just harnessing nature really. This is in our site in Awakuni. So these are the windrows. So like when you saw the tractor laying out. And this is in conjunction with the local iwi. We're leasing the land. So a real win-win-win situation where we pay a higher than normal lease, but the land isn't that great. So after, you know, a few cycles over the land, we're handing back the land back to the iwi in a much better condition, which is really exciting for us. The true heroes are the earthworms. I mean, the 27 human team's pretty cool, with the 3 billion Noki is pretty cool as well. And you can see in here the little round capsules. So these are the basically the eggs. So worms will mate, produce a capsule. Inside the capsule has the sperm, the eggs, and some nutrients. Within 3 weeks, they hatch between 1 to 7 worms. And this winter, particularly because it's been a very mild winter, but very wet, our farms are just teeming with worms. We just had one of New Zealand's largest market gardens. I've just nipped back from there to our Taupo site, and there's just worms everywhere. They were blown away. And then at the end of the process,
after 6 to 9 months of chomping through the waste, reducing the volumes by up to 80%, our guys leave the last 20% as rich worm castings, which is ideal for soil enrichment. The castings get screened, packed, and distributed to farmers, growers, and home gardeners across New Zealand to enrich their soils. Seems like the perfect solution where everyone wins, right? Well, it is. Every piece of worm bin waste you separate and help us with really does make that difference, and you can be rest assured it is going to a sustainable end-of-life place. So thanks for feeding our 3 billion workers. This has been a worm-approved message from Manu.
So one of the advantages that we do have, particularly coming in, we talked about contamination earlier, is that we can screen our product at the end. So worm poo or vermicast is 2 mils in diameter. And for our bag product that we sell, we can screen down to 6 mil, and for the product that we typically sell to farmers, it's 10 mil. So now if a coffee plastic lid goes through the process, we can screen it out at the end, which is really, really important. The other side too is we've just started exporting our vermicast as well. We sent a container to Singapore a couple of weeks ago. It's not an area we're focusing on because, quite frankly, we need the vermicast on our soils here and not to be sending it offshore. And at the moment, we haven't got enough vermicast. We can't keep up with demand, which is, again, a great problem to have. And this is just a picture of Michael, our founder, a few years back when we did a maize trial. You know, it really is, it really does work very well. The different type of products we sell, we have a liquid vermicast, not to be confused with worm wee. We don't have leaching problems or leaching issues with our farms. We have to create our own liquid vermicast, so it's more stable and a higher quality product. From the bag products, we actually sell worms. Ex-lottle farmers, who knows, but they are. We had somebody that just bought 500 worms to feed their ex-lottles. Very strange. And also, as I say, the bulk and bag product overseas as well. A big part of what we're all about is our people, and it's just such a big part. I can't just go to a university or a polytech and go, hey, I need 10, 20 worm farmers. So we've just launched Aku Mainoki, which is our Mainoki learning. So it's basically our own training centre for our team, and that we're such a wide and diverse team, from PhD scientists to young fellas that have just left school. So young Kane down the bottom, he is still at school. He's 14. He's our official worm hunter. Yes, we have a worm hunter as a job. Right through to the top one, you'll see one of our PhD scientists being taught by our site manager to how to drive a loader. And big on community. So we have a fundraising program with a lot of communities where we'll sell at basically at cost the bags, and they can sell that much better than the chocolates. And we've just launched Mainoki Marakai, because in a lot of our sites we have a spare hectare of land that we just can't do anything with. So we've just ordered quite a number of citrus trees. I see the team at Kari Taia on the call, awesome. So they're growing those for us, and we'll be planting those on a lot of our sites so we can feed our team, feed our community as well. So that is in a very, I think I did quite well, in less than 10 minutes, basically a little bit about what Manu is all about. And again, it's all about the soils, but utilising those organic waste, or resources we call it, to produce the vermicast. Currently, we're processing close to 200,000 tonnes a year. Our initial mission was 1 million tonnes a year of waste. We've had to revise that now that pressure's come on from MFE and communities to 1.5 million tonnes a year. So we have the capacity to cope with that. So yeah, thanks for inviting me along. And I know that was a whirlwind, and I know there'll be lots of questions. So feel free to reach out to me directly or through LinkedIn or whatever, and more than happy to answer any questions. We also run public worm tours. That sounds really weird to say that. Every month in Taupo, so you're more than welcome to register for that and actually come along and touch and feel and see what it's all about as well. Awesome, thanks for putting this together, team, and yeah, thank you.
Kia ora, Phil. And Liz, you're next.
Kia ora koutou. Sorry, my camera's not working. But I'm going to have a go at this sharing my screen now and see if it works. Otherwise, I have to rely on Amy. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it, Liz.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I've really enjoyed all the speakers so far, and I guess my little segment is back to the flax roots and back to community. So, ko karioi te maunga, ko whaingaro te moana, ko Liz Stanway tōku ingoa. Here is the beautiful Raglan, where I'm so lucky to live and work. And I work with Extreme Zero Waste, a community recycling organisation, and we've been working for 22 years actually. We're a more than profit community enterprise, and we're all about turning a negative of waste into multiple community benefits to our community. And we're always looking for positive solutions to environmental, economic, social and cultural challenges. I won't call them problems. When it comes to, I'm going to talk about organic waste, which is my area of work. I've been involved in organic waste minimisation and more recently diversion ever since all the time I've been working with extreme waste, which is about 20 years. And we use the organic waste hierarchy to guide our approach to how we deal with organic waste. So for the first 10 years of extreme waste existence, we were focusing hard on source reduction, which is not wasting food waste, and food rescue, getting food back to the community through food banks, etc., aroha stands, and also home composting. But we found that after 10 years, we were, I think this is the wrong version of my slideshow, but never mind, I'll just keep talking. I found that we were hitting about 12%. We'd managed to knock the food waste back in the bags by 12%, but we still had quite a lot of food waste in our bags. We looked a little bit deeper into this and found that our community were struggling with the fact that they have rentals, busy family life, struggle keeping it going. Some people still didn't like the idea of handling food waste, got used to putting it in the bin, and also vermin problems at home. So we re-looked at our goals, and Amy, can I switch to your version of the PowerPoint, please? Because I think this is an older version. Sorry about this.
Just share that now. Does you just tell me if I have got the version that you're after?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. And then you just tell me when to move on.
Okay.
Right.
So we decided to reset our goals for organic waste recovery, and we still wanted to have a system that was about waste minimisation, and but we also thought, well, with this waste still in the waste stream, we could turn that negative into a positive in terms of local employment, emissions reduction, and supporting access to local food and supporting food sovereignty and zero waste, because if people are growing their own food, they're also reducing the waste. Cool. Next slide, thanks. So we moved to scoping a town-wide food waste collection and community-scaled but centralised composting venture. Next slide. And so the features of our project were it was designed as a small town community system, was designed with our community and our local government agencies and a little bit national government too. We did a lot of research before we got going. We did our waste audits, we checked out equipment costs and very importantly, the market. And we did lots of community consultation and conducted trials. Next slide, thanks. And very important actually is from the beginning was collaborations. I think that added a real strength to our project, and we've also had awesome support from funders as well along our long journey, such as Trust Waikato and I think Well Energy as well. So where did we land? We landed, there's our food waste collection equipment, which at that time was quite new and now is fairly standard. You're starting to see that around the country. So we trialled this configuration in the early days. We have the curbside bin, the vented kitchen caddy is very good, and we've got a flat pack compostable bag, which works really well with the caddy, and lots of comms for our community to help them to use the system. And we find this is really user-friendly, this configuration that really helps people divert and change their behaviour. Maybe we'll change the collection along the way as people get used to diverting food waste again. Thank you. Next slide. So, and at the other end, so we had our food waste collections, and then we also bring the food waste back to our site where we built we've got two systems, a hot aerobic system for the food waste and some of the garden waste that we receive. And then for the rest of the garden waste, we have a cooler, longer aerobic system. The features of that, yeah, works well in our community because this is the, that should have been, it's easy for people to use. The collection is equitable for everyone. It complements home diversion. Residents can use the service whenever they need it. We're seeing participation around 50% of permanently occupied dwellings, and the production of the compost is great because it's a mutually beneficial or it's sort of circularity of, if you have the compost, you can encourage people to grow their own food, and people keep getting the compost if they find it's good compost. And we're lucky that we've been involved in supporting the emergence of food security networks and local food producers. linking through to Gary's talk, this kind of venture can fit quite well with a resource recovery centre. It has worked well with extreme waste because we have a large site. We've been composting garden waste for a long time. We've managed to integrate the food waste collection into our other curbside collections, which gives us lots of economies and benefits of sharing stuff and equipment. We can provide our service for about $1.50 a week. And we had the strength of working with the Resource Recovery Centre in Extreme Waste because Extreme had the track record, so that sort of reputation is good. Thank you. Currently we work with our district council in providing this service. The district council provides the site, the chipper. They helped with the construction of the composting unit, and the collections are now funded through our rating system. Thanks. What Extreme Waste provides is the collection service, the comms out to our community, which is very important for the whole system, composting expertise, and the IP for operating the collections and the composting. We do the processing, we provide some of the equipment, and we do the sales and marketing for the compost. And so we all the running costs for the composting side of things is recovered from compost sales and green waste fees. We don't receive support from our council to do that aspect of the operation. There's a little graphic that we've used to just explain to our community what we're up to. We're very much aiming for circularity, and we do encourage people to grow as much of their own fresh produce as they can. So that supports the zero waste co-papa in other areas, packaging, etc. We're processing around 3 to 4 tons of food a week, and then mixing it with green waste, so that's another tonnage. We are doing about 150 tons a year, so this is a little out of date, needs updating. So we're sort of sitting at 800 tons since we started. And all our compost is sold locally, which is amazing. I'm really stoked, and it's really, really satisfying to hear people's gardening stories and how they're enjoying at least growing fresh produce for their families and whānau, so that's really cool. Thank you. And finally, there's always new things to do. We would like to diversify our products a little more. We've got three or four basic products. There's opportunity to diversify the actual model and maybe add community hubs and working more in schools. Strengthen the relationship with the emerging kai-growing communities, so more than just home gardeners. There's emerging food growers around the area. We're 50 kilometres, of course, from Rua, so we're quite remote from you know, the main sources of food. There may be other organic resources that we can incorporate, and there's other collaborations to work on, for instance, with Manu, our local campground. We've got a few challenges, but I'm not even going to focus on those because I think we'll finish there. And we're very proud of our little composting outfit out here, and I'm very happy to be part of the Circularising Organics project, working with Val. And I think it provides an example of perhaps what can be done in the more remote satellites of Aotearoa, where trucking, moving organic resources around, you know, uses a lot of fossil fuels. So yeah, that's our contribution. Thanks everyone. I've really enjoyed all the other kōrero.
Kia ora, Liz. And everyone, thanks everyone for sharing your kaupapa. It's really inspiring. So Rick, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the presenters. And for me, it's there's a number of stories in there, and it's I really feel that for us to achieve this target of 50% reduction of waste going to landfill, and really it's about 50% reduction completely. We don't want it either incinerated or landfilled, and working right at that front end. But in order to achieve that is really about collaboration. And I think that's what I've, seen a lot, and Gary, talking about being part of the Zero Waste Network and this growing network of community resource recovery centres throughout the Motu. Phil, amazing what Mainuki is doing, and the opportunity to work in with mana whenua, working with community councils, and Val, the collaboration from the regional council, support from Harvey, from the Waikato Wellbeing. We've all got to kind of share these opportunities if we're going to make a big impact on what we currently view as waste. So yeah, for me, it's about behaviour change. And it is intergenerational. And we've learned that in Raglan. We've been 23 years since our landfill closed, and so many of the young people who work with us just don't even know what a landfill is. Zero waste has become second nature, and so that's their expectation to find that in every town, every place they visit, and which is certainly not the case. So we've got a great challenge across the region to improve those things. But facilities, like Gary said, yes, there's physical facilities that we need, but and it was something that Te Rua talked about as well. We need to build this social infrastructure. We need to be able to find what Phil say, the worm hunter. You're not going to go to the university and find these people. We don't have the institutions that create experts in zero waste, and so once again, if we share the opportunities, if we build the infrastructure collaboratively, in my opinion, then we're going to create all of these amazing new jobs that are about a positive future. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear people's comments. If you've got some questions, either throw them in the chat, or if people just want to pop their hand up for some comments on the presentations, or if you've got some views about the future collaboration for the Waikato region. Something else which I felt like at Extreme, we've kind of analysed our progress against the UN SDGs, and out of the 17, we're making great headway against 13. So I think that's a useful way of looking at your business model and what you're doing, and having a look at the SDGs. And there's no rules about how we manage ourselves, or what sort of company or organization that we actually make. We can actually decide to do things quite differently from the norm, and the UN SDG is a useful framework. There's problems with them, but it's a useful framework to measure yourself against. It'd be interesting to hear from anyone else who has also been involved in organics or food production. I see a few people on the list there. Any hands up? Any questions? Nadine, I know that you've got something you're busting to tell us.
No, I don't think I've got anything to, to bring to the organic. It's just been fascinating just listening to the talks and the resource and the knowledge, and I just like what you said about, you know, it's about behavior change and daring also to do things different from the norm. But yeah, that would be my small comment. But thank you, Rick.
Yeah, Nadine's building an amazing community here in Raglan. So yeah, it's well away from the norm. And so, you know, how do you have residential, how do you build a community that has access to good land and shared resources? So once again, a different way of doing things. There's a question here from Katie. What's the best way to get a community recycling centre started in our town? Well, you know, there's a number of centres which are already established, like Extreme Zero Waste or like the Seagull Centre in Thames. So, you know, I would start with a visit to those ones, and you can do them either informally, just visiting as a customer, or you can do a formal tour of Extreme Zero Waste. Just get in touch and find out how that's happening. Auckland Council building a network of community resource recovery centres, and Gary's involved in that, and myself. We're up to about 12 at the moment, and there's going to be at least 21. There's a budget for 21 centres. So they see the community resource recovery centres as providing that kind of top of the waste hierarchy style of waste prevention, behaviour change. So you'll go there for a life-changing experience. It's not like a transfer station. And so it's very good to go up and have a look at the 12 existing up in Auckland. There is some support that, as Gary mentions, through Val's projects in the Regional Council. If people are interested, then make contact with Gary or Val to find out. And yeah, we believe that for every population of more than 10,000 people, really you should have some sort of a resource recovery centre, access to those resources for your community. You know, if you consider where you're living and the size of your community, then you should sort of measure yourself against that. And for, as I say, up in Auckland, you know, they've got 1.5 million people. And so they're starting with 21 centres, and we believe that probably 60 centres is around what they'll require in the future. And what else have we got here in the chat? From your experience, what's the most progress being made in small communities? Our worms can also process jib. Oh, nice.
Oh, Rick, I quickly talked to that one from Katie as well, or
yeah.
So so the key, Katie, is it's a community recycling centre. It's not a recycling centre. It's not a transfer station. So the word community is very, very important, and I say that, and also recycling's a bit of a misnomer. We don't do any recycling. Phil does recycling at Mainoki. They take a product and turn it into an end product. We do collection of materials and transfer or sell as they are, the materials. But I think most of the group, like I've spent most of my working career working with groups who have got to a point I can then get them a serious contract to get to the next stage, because community enterprises can do a whole lot of stuff in your community. So the key really to start with is to find a group of people who are keen to put in some time and some mahi, because by yourself it's very hard. So really you've got to get that group of people together with skills and a bit of passion about doing something first. And then you can get on your journey of learning and sharing from the other groups. The thing in our sector is everyone gives pretty willingly of their time and IP and expertise, you know, and it's not a lot of IP. You know, we all talk about IP, and I think it's a confusing word sometimes, but our IP is about our communities doing it their way. You know, and every community recycling centre is different that I go to. They've all got their own different flavour, but they have to be collaborative, because you've got to have a whole lot of other players on board for them to work. You know, and And to get them set up properly, you know, you could be $3 to $5 million depending on what you want to do. It could be just leasing a warehouse, you know, so it can be a whole range of what you want to do there. You know, and we've also been pushing container deposits and product stewardship for a long time in our sector. They're coming, they're still not here. We think there'll be a revenue stream for these centres, but that's still got a wee way to go. And also working with people like Phil at Mainoki and stuff, you know, we become drop-off places where we feed the material to Mainoki, or like we do with Reclaim, or like we do with OG with paper, you know, like we do with Visi with glass. You know, that's, yeah. So happy to have a chat, KDO, if that's something you're used to. Cool.
Yeah, and there's funding opportunities coming up. You know, the waste minimisation fund from central government, from Ministry of Environment, is going to go up to $60 per tonne as a levy on every tonne of waste taken to landfill. So there'll be a lot more funding available to help with initiatives. But yeah, collaboration is definitely the way to go. As Gary says, there's lots of information out there about how to do things, and also lots of experience of how not to do things. So yeah, talk to a great range of people before you settle on your project, because you may find that you don't need the infrastructure that you first thought. Ian, did you sort out your keyboard problem, or do you want to ask a question?
No, I was just going to, thanks very much, Rick. I was just going to say to Katie that I'm really happy, if she wants as part of that, the answer to her question, to contact me, and, you know, she will certainly arrange for her to come across and look at some of what's happening in Hauraki and the Coromandel. So really keen to do that if she would like.
Cool.
I'll try and put a phone number that she can ring me on the chats, but the keyboard's a bit it's a bit problematic at the moment. Yeah, you're not selling any spare keyboards there at Extreme, eh?
Yeah, we could sort you out. We got a good deal. Might even throw in a free mouse.
Rick, I think there's a question from Margie and Elna as well. From your experience, is the most progress being made in small communities or in cities, and then why?
Yeah, great question. Well, we've seen that Auckland Council has really changed their procurement and is working collaboratively with community and Māori and Pacifica as well. So a lot of that has been about their procurement policy, and in the way that they, and the shaping up of the projects, so that they have, I think, had the best success at waste diversion when they have worked with communities, because our philosophy aligns around zero waste to landfill. So it's not about building a business; it's about the kaupapa. So places like Auckland City are doing super well, and then there's lots of small communities around the country. When Extreme first started, there was Kaitaia, Kaikoura and Ashburton. Now there's at least 50 resource recovery centres or communities running projects. So I thoroughly recommend people to go to Zero Waste Network, have a look at their online stuff, but join up as a member as well, because there's lots of collaboration there, and lots of training. There's an organics tour, which is Liz is taking I think next week. It might be full, but there might be a place on it. But there's also 2 or 3 tours up in Auckland, formal tours of the Resource Recovery Network, so people can go on those. Yeah, just go to Zero Waste Network for those links. And yeah, you reckon we could excite Phil into giving us a little bit more detail about what he's been doing? I reckon Come on, Phil, tell us who you're working with. What can we expect?
Look, it's, just to put a bit of context to it, you know, as I said, we did our own trial around the organics collection, utilising worm food bins. So full organics into one bin, so your paper, cardboard, green waste, packaging. So we're putting a lot of pressure on industries to change their packaging, particularly those doing school lunchbox programs in the Waikato. All that packaging that they were using had PFAS in, and we weren't happy about that. So we found them solutions. They now changed their packaging, so that's been a big win for us. But what we realised is we're not a collection company and we're too inefficient. So we're having very deep conversations with waste management at the moment. So that's our who we're hoping to, well, we've had a verbal agreement from the CEO of Waste Management to say yes, we wanted to pilot this and then obviously roll it around the countryside where we've got our sites. And that's incredibly exciting because it means that we can start now with an organics collection from businesses, which, you know, everything's around curbside for residential. There was a small part in the submission around the business, but yet that's where there's a lot of organic waste sitting as well. So we're very excited for that because that then obviously morphs into the curbside side as well. And we're starting to get a lot of councils really looking at whether they just do the food bins or do the organic bins. So like Dunedin City Council are now doing organic bins, not just the food bins, which is far more efficient collecting, which reduces the carbon footprint significantly, but it also gives us that carbon source with the food waste, so the paper, the cardboard, green waste, etc. So yeah, really exciting, you know, and we're talking across the board there, that's close to 1 million tonnes from both the businesses and that. So you know, even if we were to only do 25% of that across the country, we're talking significant volumes. And the most exciting part for us is that 1 million tonnes of organic waste means 250,000 tonnes of vermicast, which is going into our soils to help, you know, get the soils producing better and ready for climate change. So yeah, there you go, Rick, you got it out of me.
That's great. Cheers, Phil. Yeah, and there's a question there about building waste, and there will be some projects kicking off. I know that Green Gorilla are moving into the Waikato, so they'll probably be setting up a plant for collecting C&D waste. But something that Phil touched on, you know, is around cardboard, and you know, everyone's using plastic tape at the moment, but there's no reason why we can't be using paper tape for all cardboard. And in the C&D business, the wrapping of building sites now in soft plastic or LDPE, there's no reason why they can't make the tape out of LDPE as well, rather than vinyl, which it is at the moment. So, you know, there's some of those things around design, some of those things about the infrastructure we need, and then and having a collaborative approach so that we're all heading in the same direction. But we're probably running out of time, and we got anything more, Val? Any more questions? Just a big thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you for everyone for making time available to participate on the call. My understanding is that copies of the slides will be made available to everyone, and that this will be in recorded and an online resource if you want to show any of your other team. But thank you, Harvey, for your time. Thank you for being there and pushing the UN SDGs, useful framework. And we started with some statements, and so just to end, wish everyone safe journey home, and wish everyone a real positive framework for the future. We've got massive goals to get 50% reduction across the region. So if you want to be involved, if you've got some cunning ideas, then please share them with Val and myself, and let's weave them into our program of activity. Thank you again.